You'll rip her out root and stem.
The objective here is to remove Cersei without destroying King's Landing.
Hey everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 4 video, so here we go. The gauntlet has been thrown, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the Game of Thrones videos. There's also a bunch of separate prequel Game of Thrones stuff that happened recently that I'll do a separate video for sometime next week too. There's a new round of the HBO Now giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. And obviously, spoiler warning for Episode 4 if you have not seen the episode yet. Top 15 WTF and Easter eggs. There was a lot of foreshadowing as well as callbacks to previous episodes because they're trying to close things down in the next couple of episodes. We have the last war in next week's episode and then whatever the finale is going to be. They're also trying to foreshadow a lot of pregnancies, children, things happening in the last couple of episodes, so don't be surprised for a couple big twists. Number 15 though, the funeral. They opened the episode with a really somber soundtrack as you pan up Ser Jorah's body. Daenerys is mourning him. She whispers something in his ear that we can't quite hear. I just assumed that it was something sweet about how much he meant to her this whole time, even though she didn't love him romantically the way that he wanted to. Sansa does the same thing to Theon. She even gives him a Stark sigil pin, sort of naming him, "You're Stark of Winterfell, you're one of us, even if you're not biologically related to us." If you don't remember too, I've used this picture a couple times. This is of the Stark children and Theon before they started filming Season 1. This was at a book signing that they went to for George R. R. Martin before they started production on the show. So remember, Theon is actually an OG Stark child, even though technically he's not a Stark. The speech that Jon Snow gave as they started to burn the bodies is also a callback to the Night's Watch oath. "We are the shields that protect the realms of men." He says they were the shield that protected the realms of men. Their like will never be seen again. So they're referencing a lot of Night's Watch customs, but also a lot of Northern customs because a lot of these people that died were Northerners, including Ser Jorah of Bear Island. R.I.P. Little Bear, R.I.P. Mormonts too. There was this whole thing going through the episode about them wanting to separate Daenerys and make her feel more isolated as she starts to lose more and more of her support system, lose her children, aka the dragons, as well as it seems the allegiance of her inner circle, talking about Varys. We'll get to all that stuff. You kind of see them visually foreshadow that too, as you see Daenerys standing way apart from Jon Snow and the Stark children. Like you have them way over on one side, you have Daenerys way over on the other side. Number 14, the Great Feast, obviously much more somber than the last Great Feast that we saw in here back during Season 1 when Robert Baratheon arrived, but things pick up eventually. One of my favorite characters during all these banquet scenes, as much fun as people were having, there were a lot of funny character moments, was the Hound, who was sort of being bah humbug about everything. Like he just could not stand everybody celebrating so much just because he's still so focused on his brother the Mountain and Clegane Bowl. Feel kind of bad for that northern girl that he passed off. But number 13, they pay off a big fan theory that's been going on for the last couple of seasons. Daenerys legitimizes Gendry as Gendry Baratheon and names him Lord of Storm's End. I feel like the line of dialogue where they say, "Does anyone know who the current Lord of Storm's End is?" and no one can answer is actually a meta joke in real life because the fandom has been asking that question for the last couple of seasons. I've seen it on many of my episode videos going back to Season 4, 5, 6. Like, who's the Lord of Storm's End now that both Stannis and Renly are gone? Is it Gendry? Wouldn't they have to legitimize him? And that's where all the Gendry being legitimized theories started, is that, well, if he's legitimized, then he can become Lord of Storm's End, and that'll sew up that plot hole. There's also kind of a funny line of dialogue from Davos talking about the Lord of Light, like he just totally screwed off after Melisandre took off and they defeated the White Walkers. Like, what does the Lord of Light want with us now? He was so big on this War for the Dawn. We won it, then he just completely takes off. We could talk forever about the importance of the mythological elements of the show in the narrative, as well as the human elements, but obviously the last couple of episodes mostly seem like they're going to focus on people versus people. Like they're trying to say that as terrible as the Night King and the White Walkers were, the things that people will do to each other are way worse. But number 12, I did love that moment between Bran Stark and Tyrion. They're talking more about the succession. Everybody's talking about succession because of Jon Snow, the Iron Throne, Rhaegar Targaryen, Lyanna Stark. But Tyrion raises the question, aren't you going to be Lord of Winterfell? And Bran has to explain, no, I can't do that. I'm not a person. I can't have any male heirs, and I don't want anything anymore. I mostly live in the past. I think they did this just to remind you that Bran still has all of his abilities. He hasn't stopped being the Three-Eye Raven, and his abilities will continue to be important for the next couple of episodes. but it's also a reference to the title of the episode, aka The Last Stark, because right now, technically, Bran is the last natural-born Stark, 100% Stark, because Jon Snow's only 50% Stark. But it also foreshadows more Jon Snow-Daenerys baby in the future too, because their baby would be another part Stark, only 25% Stark, but still, Bran Stark would no longer be the last Stark. I really love it when he references a lot of historical stuff in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's always funny to hear him name drop stuff like that. I had this wheelchair built to spec based on Daeron Targaryen's. It was my favorite. He built it for his crippled nephew more than 100 years ago. Also, funny moment, Jon Royce shows back up for those of you that wondered where he was during episode 3, because he did not appear apparently in that episode, even though he should have been hiding down in the crypts with everyone else. Number 11, they sort of start the Daenerys slide to freak out mode. Daenerys starts to go a little bit nuts when Tormund won't stop boasting about Jon being an amazing king that everyone loves. They all toast him. Everyone's getting drunk all over the place. But they're really trying to lay it on thick that everyone loves Jon Snow and remind you that he's still king in the North, but the word king means something very different to Daenerys because she knows the truth. Probably the biggest surprise as part of this Daenerys storyline this week was Varys. I was not expecting him to turn on her so quickly, but I'll talk about that in a second. Number 10, all the Brienne-Jaime drinking contest and fan service payoff, they finally get together. I wasn't actually expecting this. I'm happy they did it. I like them together as a couple. I feel like the show has developed their relationship more than it has for any other pair on the show. Like Jon Snow and Daenerys are supposed to have this epic relationship that's full of all this drama now because of all the information they've revealed, but the show has spent so much more time and so many more seasons developing Jaime and Brienne as a couple together. But obviously he's a tragic character, so the way he leaves goes back to King's Landing to join the war. It pretty much seems like Brienne understands that he's not going to come back, and I think that Jaime is on all of our death predictions list this season. But there was a nice callback when they were finally together and she sort of helps him undress. It was a nice callback to the season 3 episode when she helped him eat his food, almost as if they were an old married couple already at this point. Number 9 was the Sansa Hound reunion. I really love their moment together. They haven't had a real reunion since the season started. Everyone kept asking, what about Sansa and the Hound, going all the way back to Sweet Little Bird back in the early seasons. Whatever you think about the writing in the storylines in the other episodes, I feel like a lot of this dialogue here works really well. If I had gone with you like you'd wanted, I would still be a little bird today. And I love that funny reaction from the Hound when he finds out that Sansa fed Ramsay to his hounds. It pretty much seems like the way the Hound went out in the episode with Arya, that he's going back for Clegane Bowl, does not plan on coming back, so he expects to die during the attempt. But Arya is also going back to cross Cersei's name off of her list. They drop a really big reference to the end of season 4, where he says, "Are you going to leave me to die again?" And she says, "Yes, I'm probably going to leave you to die." Pretty seriously, but also kind of joking a little bit, making it sound like when the Hound eventually engages in real Clegane Bowl, Arya may help out, and the Hound will probably pretty definitely die from his wounds. It's the last couple of episodes, so of course the body count is going to go up more and more. Next week's episode is just an even bigger excuse for that because you have an actual real big war being fought. Number 8, Gendry proposes marriage to Arya, and not surprisingly, she says, "That's not me." She gives him the exact same speech, referencing season 1 with Ned Stark, then again at the beginning of season 7 when she had the reunion with Nymeria. "Oh, that's not you." Even if you're really bummed that it seems like they might not wind up together, I do feel like the show is sticking to its earlier logic. Like they are trying to pay off that arc. Like Arya Stark is not a lady that's going to live in a castle someday, so the only way that they would be together is if Gendry didn't want to be the Lord of Storm's End. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about whether or not Arya is now pregnant with Gendry's child, because it seems like all the women on the show are getting pregnant these last couple of episodes. 7 was Daenerys begging Jon Snow to be silent about his secret. I know there are going to be a lot of people that'll be really upset about this part of the storyline. And of all the storylines during the episode, this did feel like the biggest left turn. Like, why is Daenerys suddenly acting so crazy? Just the look on Emilia Clarke's face when she's performing this scene, it's almost like she's in terror of what's going to happen, that she wouldn't win the Iron Throne because everybody's going to love Jon Snow so much more, even though Jon Snow is trying to do everything he can to talk sense into her and calm her down. We'll talk about this the next couple of episodes too, because obviously there's only a couple episodes left, so they're going to have to bring this to a head pretty fast. But everyone seems to think the biggest hang-up in all this, because why wouldn't you just get them married? That would solve all our problems, is because they think that Jon Snow won't marry her because they're related. But they're not really counting on any potential pregnancy, which I think would seal the deal for them. Like, that would definitely make Jon Snow want to marry Daenerys on the spot. He absolutely hates the idea of bastards because of the way he grew up being shunned by what seems like Catelyn Stark, just treating him terribly. So if he were to find that he had a child with Daenerys and they weren't married, that baby would be a bastard, he would hate that idea. So it sure would solve a lot of their problems if Daenerys were to lay a new dragon egg sometime soon, or at least find out that she's pregnant. I also kind of think that they're going to parallel that pregnant Daenerys storyline with Cersei being pregnant storyline. They kept talking about children and pregnancies the last 15 minutes of the episode, including Samwell and Gilly, who look like they're either going to have a baby Jon or who knows what they're going to name it if it's a girl. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about what Samwell's going to do now too, because it seems like they're not going to participate in the war to come, so maybe they just go back to Horn Hill and he becomes Lord of Horn Hill. 6 was all the battle planning, although it seems like a lot of that went out the window by the end of the episode. Most of the early plan is just to wait Cersei out, give her time to sort of eat herself alive, so to speak. Like, she's a terrible person, her people hate her, Cersei hates her people, as Tyrion says at the end of the episode. If they starve the city out using a blockade long enough, then the people will just kick Cersei to the curb. But because they're hyping up all this drama between the groups, Daenerys demands Jon Snow obey, and he's trying to do everything he can to do that. He even steps over Sansa, who wants to wait a little while to give the troops time to rest, which obviously, number 5, builds to Jon revealing the truth to Sansa and Arya. I love the way they cut away too. They don't give you their direct reaction. You only see it on Sansa's face later when she's looking at the dragons fly over Winterfell, just deep in thought like, what are we gonna do about this? I'm glad that they didn't draw this out, even though all the backstabbing and the intrigue and the double dealing and betrayals that are going on within Daenerys' camp seem kind of odd at this point. But number 4, welcome back Bronn. So we finally pick up with the Bronn storyline, who just waltzes in with the crossbow. They both immediately notice the crossbow. They definitely remember that it's the one that was used to kill Tywin. It seemed like it took them a couple minutes to catch up with what was happening in the moment. They just thought that he was showing up like, what are you doing here with that crossbow? That looks like the crossbow that I used to kill my father with. But we get the details of Cersei's terms. He'll be Lord of Riverrun for killing Jaime and Tyrion, and they double his price by offering him Highgarden. There's actually an Easter egg for the beginning of the Lannister family. If you don't remember, Land the Clever is the person that started the Lannister family. When Jaime tries to shade him a little bit, he says, your ancestors were no better than me. He's actually not wrong, because supposedly Land the Clever, the person that started House Lannister, conned the former owners of Casterly Rock, House Casterly, out of the castle. So very literally, the Lannisters conned their way into the nobility of Westeros thousands and thousands of years ago. We might actually see that play out on one of the prequel TV series. 3, everybody launches a plot against Daenerys. Sansa seems like she's plotting against Daenerys. What if, Tyrion, what if there were someone better than Daenerys? So clearly she's told him because of the conversation that he has with Varys on the boat later. But whatever her ideas are, it also seems like now Varys is launching a plot against Daenerys. And based on the final conversation he had with Tyrion after the little war council, it sounds like he's willing to, quote unquote, get rid of Daenerys if she becomes a problem. So we're in full-on treason mode now, and Daenerys looks like she's going to burn anything that steps in her way, so I would not be surprised if she winds up executing Varys at some point in the next episode or two. Tyrion kind of half-heartedly seems like he wants to believe Daenerys will do the right thing, given the right advice from her inner circle, so it seems like he still wants to be Team Daenerys, even though looking past his comments, he clearly says that he thinks that Jon Snow would be a better ruler than Daenerys, and they're both worried that Jon doesn't want to have anything to do with the marriage with her because they're related, but he's not completely ready to give up on Daenerys. So just remember that they're trying to prevent Daenerys from burning King's Landing to the ground with the dragon. Would not be surprised if they try to bring back some wildfire twist and King's Landing does wind up burning to the ground. There were just too many times during the episode where Tyrion referenced fire burning King's Landing, want to hear all the screams. Even Qyburn is like, no, I don't want to hear those screams. That would sound terrible. But they haven't referenced wildfire in a while, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to roll out some twist in the next episode or two. And because we're getting a lot of goodbyes during the episode, you get Tormund saying to Jon that he's taking the wildlings back to Castle Black. We just need room to roam. Maybe they'll just colonize the new gift like they did during the books, or they'll also go back north of the wall, because at least in the short term, it seems like the threat of the Night King and the White Walkers is gone. Even though I know a lot of you are like, hey, wait a minute, are they going to bring them back at the end of the show? Is the Night King completely dead, or will he make a surprise reappearance? It just seems like for now, the wildlings are saying that they're going to go back north for good, and Jon says, will you please take Ghost with you? He needs room to roam too. So I know a lot of you are really upset about what they've done with Ghost the past couple of seasons. You can see he lost one of his ears during the battle, and they kind of tried to have a goodbye moment with Jon where they kind of look at each other. And remember, because the direwolves have like a low-level psychic connection with the Stark children that they belong to, they say goodbye to each other, but it's unspoken. You get a little whimper from Ghost, and Jon looks really sad about it. Number 2, huge WTF, Euron killing Rhaegal with the Scorpions. So I know a lot of people are questioning the logic of how this all went down, because they hit Rhaegal with 3 successive shots, perfectly placed. They're able to tear all their ships to shreds, but they're unable to even get close to hitting Daenerys. Maybe their true shot enchantment rolled off, but I know a lot of you are wondering if the dragons are going to be able to lay more eggs that would only work if Drogon had actually flipped genders and was actually the one to lay the eggs now, because it seems like Rhaegal is dead. But it is possible for dragons within the world of A Song of Ice and Fire to sort of flip gender. So even if Drogon and Rhaegal were male originally, Drogon could flip genders, become a female, and they could become a mated pair. Number 1 WTF, of course, was Cersei executing Missandei and throwing the gauntlet for Daenerys for next week's big battle, the Last War, she calls it. Jon Snow is also marching south with the troops from Winterfell, the ones that are left. Just remember all the things that Tyrion said when he was trying to appeal to Qyburn and then to Cersei. So 1, he keeps referencing Cersei's unborn child, talking about children, women being pregnant, having babies. Just a parallel, I think, for what's going to happen with Daenerys' storyline, but also referencing burning the city down, which reminds you of the Mad King. So obviously they want you to think about Daenerys the way you thought about the Mad King because of what Varys said. I've served many tyrants. They all talk about destiny. So let me know in the comments, what was your favorite moment from the episode? What do you think about the idea of Daenerys potentially getting pregnant and someone burning King's Landing to the ground? What'll happen is I'll post my Game of Thrones episode 5 trailer video tomorrow. There's also supposed to be a Spider-Man Far From Home trailer in the morning, so that'll probably be my next video, then I'll post the Game of Thrones trailer. While you wait for everything, click here for my episode 3 video, and click here for my episode 2 video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.